For decades, China's most dangerous machines lived in shadows, glimpsed in blurry satellite photos or leaked factory footage, never confirmed, never officially explained. Then, in less than a year, the curtain came down all at once. Missiles the West had only theorized about rolled past Tiananmen Square in broad daylight. Lasers burned drones out of the sky on live state television. A submarine drone the length of a city bus surfaced for the cameras. This is not speculation anymore. This is confirmed hardware, dated, photographed, and, in some cases, already exported to the Gulf. Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to walk through every major Chinese weapon system revealed between September 2025 and July 2026, organized not by date but by what each machine actually does. Some of these will sound familiar, others will sound like science fiction wearing a military uniform, and more than a few of them were never meant to be seen at all, only spotted, photographed, and confirmed almost by accident. Let's start where the story really started, with the missiles that finally completed China's nuclear triad. Chapter 1. The New Nuclear Triad. On September 3, 2025, 80 years after Japan's surrender, Beijing staged its largest military parade in decades. Near the very end of the procession came the missiles nobody outside Chinese intelligence circles had officially confirmed. The DF-61 rolled through Tiananmen Square, looking almost identical to the DF-41, China's existing top-tier intercontinental missile. That resemblance worried analysts more than a dramatic new shape would have. Estimates put its range past 15,000 kilometers, with at least 10 independently targetable warheads riding on a single airframe. It had circulated under other names for years, DF-45, DF-51, whispered about in defense circles but never confirmed, until it simply appeared in formation. What made the DF-61 genuinely unusual is that it did not replace anything. China's rocket force was still actively fielding the DF-41 when the new missile rolled past, meaning Beijing now runs two nearly identical top-tier ICBMs in parallel, a redundancy most nuclear powers simply cannot afford. Right behind it, older in spirit but larger in scale, the DF-5C followed. This is a liquid-fueled giant, silo-based, tracing its lineage back to a Cold War design first fielded in the 1980s. Chinese state media claimed a range exceeding 20,000 kilometers, enough to put almost any point on Earth within reach, with a payload of up to 12 warheads on one missile. 4 separate sections were displayed exactly as the original DF-5 had been shown at a parade 40 years earlier. First stage, second stage, and re-entry vehicle laid out almost like a history lesson in missile design. Analysts believe the DF-5C is meant to replace the older DF-5A, which already carries a multi-megaton single warhead, while a related variant, the DF-5B, trades that raw yield for as many as 5 smaller, independently targetable warheads instead. 2 philosophies, brute force and precision spread, built on the same 40-year-old airframe. This one was different though, because for the first time, China openly grouped these intercontinental weapons alongside the JL-3, a submarine-launched intercontinental missile, and the JL-1, the country's first confirmed air-launched nuclear weapon. Add the road mobile DF-31BJ, and on paper, you have a completed nuclear triad, land, sea, and air. All nuclear capable, all rolling past the same reviewing stand on the same afternoon. For years, China's air-launched leg of the triad was widely considered its weakest link, more concept than capability. The JL-1's appearance quietly closed that gap, giving Beijing the same three-way deterrent structure the United States and Russia have relied on for decades. 2 more Rocket Force weapons closed out the ballistic missile lineup that day, and neither one was technically brand new, but both received something rarer than a debut: official confirmation. The DF-26D, an intermediate-range missile nicknamed the Carrier Killer for its reported ability to strike moving warships at sea. And the DF-17, a medium-range hypersonic glide vehicle riding what engineers call a waverider profile, essentially skipping across the upper atmosphere to make interception far harder. Elsewhere in the world, similar glide vehicles have already been used in actual combat, and even dense, layered missile defenses have struggled to bring them down, which is exactly the point of building one in the first place. 9 months later, in June 2026, Chinese television aired the very first official launch footage of the DF-17 and revealed an upgraded terminal stage for the DF-26, proof these weapons were not museum pieces sitting in a parade for show, but active, evolving systems still being tested and refined behind closed doors. By the end of that single afternoon, counting every silo-based and road-mobile design together, China had publicly fielded 9 distinct versions of land-based intercontinental missile alone, some liquid-fueled, some solid, some carrying multiple warheads, one possibly even carrying a conventional payload instead of a nuclear one. That is not incremental modernization. That is an arsenal being rebuilt almost from scratch. Chapter 2. Hypersonic Predators. If the missiles opened the show, the anti-ship weapons stole a huge chunk of the runtime. China's Yingji family, which translates to Eagle Strike, appeared in 5 distinct new variants in a single afternoon, an almost absurd concentration of anti-ship firepower for one parade. The YJ-15 came first, air-launched, supersonic, designed to be carried under a bomber's wings and dropped from well outside the range of most ship-based defenses. Then, the YJ-17, described as a hypersonic anti-ship glide vehicle, skimming toward its target rather than simply falling on it, a profile that makes its final approach almost impossible to predict. The YJ-19 followed, submarine-launched and hypersonic, meaning a Chinese submarine could theoretically fire a weapon that outruns most existing ship defenses without ever surfacing to do it, staying hidden the entire time. And the YJ-20, a hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile that state media later showed being fired live at sea from the deck of the destroyer Wuxi, footage that only surfaced in December 2025, months after the missile itself had already rolled through the square. That destroyer, incidentally, belongs to the newer second production batch of the Type 055 class, a ship now widely considered closer in size and firepower to a cruiser than to what its official designation suggests. Then there is the YJ-21, an air-launched ballistic missile that many analysts consider one of the most operationally significant reveals of the entire parade, precisely because it merges 2 capabilities at once: the range and speed of a ballistic missile, with the flexibility of being launched from a bomber or a fighter jet. A weapon like that doesn't need to sit in a fixed silo waiting for orders. It can move with the aircraft carrying it, which makes it far harder to track before launch and far harder to intercept after. Few people remember this part, but the cruise missile side of the display mattered just as much. The YJ-18C, a stealth-configured ship-launched cruise missile, and the CJ-1000, a large extended-range land attack weapon capable, according to Chinese sources, of striking a drone carrying cargo aircraft from thousands of kilometers away. That last detail is worth sitting with for a moment. A missile explicitly designed to hunt the very aircraft that launch and control enemy drone swarms, before those swarms ever get close enough to matter. Together, these 7 systems told a single, unmistakable story. China no longer treats its coastal waters as a defensive perimeter. It treats them as a kill zone that starts well beyond the horizon, long before an adversary's ships are even in visual range. Chapter 3. The Directed Energy Race. Missiles cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Small drones cost a few hundred. That simple math problem is reshaping modern militaries, and nowhere is that clearer than in the wave of laser and microwave weapons China revealed across the following year. Nearly every one of these systems shares the same basic pitch: no ammunition to resupply, no explosive warhead to run out of, just electricity converted directly into a beam, fired again and again for the cost of running a generator. The centerpiece of the September parade was the LY-1, a shipborne and ground-based, high-energy laser mounted on an 8-wheeled HZ-141 truck. State media called it the world's most powerful laser system, though Beijing released almost no real specifications, nothing beyond a single large circular beam aperture and a confident claim. Two smaller lasers followed it down the avenue that same day. The OW5A10, a 10-kilowatt system mounted on a Dongfeng Mengshi vehicle, and the OW5A50, a 50-kilowatt truck-mounted version of the same family. Both had actually been spotted months earlier, caught on highway traffic cameras back in June 2025, long before their official unveiling gave them names. Rolling alongside them came the PLB 625, a barrage cannon built to fill the sky with projectiles rather than aim for precision shots, a blunt but genuinely effective answer to drone swarms, and a reminder that not every counter-drone weapon needs a beam of light to work. Then came the Hurricane 3000, a high-power microwave weapon mounted on an 8x8 Shackman truck, first teased at the 2024 Zhuhai Air Show, and finally shown in full at the parade a year later. According to Norinco's own engineers, its effective interception range against small drones exceeds 3 kilometers, further than comparable American systems currently in development. One pulse, and dozens of drone circuits simply stop working. No explosion, no ammunition spent, just electronics quietly failing in midair. This one had been hiding in plain sight even longer. Back in April 2025, months before the parade, Norinco quietly published details in its own trade magazine about the Bullet Curtain, an anti-drone barrage weapon nicknamed after the Australian metal storm concept. 16 tightly packed 35mm barrels, capable of a combined rate of up to 400,000 rounds per minute, creating what the company itself called a wall of projectiles, rather than a simple stream of bullets. The microwave story kept escalating well into 2026. In February, researchers at the Northwest Institute of Nuclear Technology in Xi'an disclosed the TPG-1000C, a compact pulsed power driver generating 20 gigawatts continuously for up to 60 seconds, and rated to operate in temperatures as low as -40 degrees. That same month, at the World Defense Show in Riyadh, a separate Chinese company, CPM-IEC, unveiled the LW-30, a truck-mounted laser built specifically for export to Gulf states hungry for affordable counter-drone protection. In March, Chinese television introduced two more systems designed to work as a pair. The Guangjian 21A, a hard-kill laser capable of firing while the vehicle is still moving, and the Guangjian 11E, a softer weapon that blinds sensors and jams data links rather than burning through metal. Together they were shown destroying simulated drones flying as low as 50 meters, right inside the blind spot that most ground radar simply cannot see into. By May, one of those two lasers had traveled a long way from home. A Guangjian 21A was spotted parked at Dubai International Airport, unannounced, unexplained, but unmistakable, quiet evidence that Chinese directed energy technology was already moving into the Gulf as Iranian drone and missile activity intensified across the region. That same month, the Chinese Navy revealed a brand new shipborne anti-drone system after what state broadcaster CCTV called a finalization test conducted in the Bohai Sea. The weapon intercepted multiple ultra-low altitude, stealth-configured drone targets in a simulated combat environment, and the successful test cleared it for mass production, meaning it could realistically be sailing on Chinese warships within a year. No public designation was ever attached to it, which is unusual for a system Beijing was clearly proud enough to broadcast on national television. That single fact tells its own story. Part of the design is meant to stay classified even after the reveal. Then, in June, came the strangest entry on this entire list, the Lijian a backpack portable laser running at just 2 kilowatts, roughly a tenth the power of the vehicle-mounted systems already covered here. It cannot stop a missile, and it can barely scratch a large drone. What it can do is let a single soldier burn a commercial quadcopter out of the sky without needing a truck, a generator, or a crew. It sits at the opposite end of a spectrum that starts with the LY-1 and its undisclosed truck-sized power output, and ends here, in a case a single infantryman can carry on his back into a trench. And in July 2026, the story reached its logical extreme. Researchers from China's National University of Defense Technology disclosed a 100-gigawatt-class microwave weapon built by linking multiple smaller pulse generators into a single combined output. The stated target this time wasn't drones at all, it was satellites, specifically low Earth orbit constellations like Starlink, systems that even a single gigawatt pulse could seriously damage from the ground. Chapter 4: Machines Without Pilots. Not every weapon revealed that year had a pilot, a crew, or even a human anywhere near the trigger. The robot wolves marched, or more accurately, rode, through Tiananmen Square mounted on transport vehicles rather than walking under their own power for the cameras that day. Four-legged, 70 kilograms each, built according to Chinese state media for frontline reconnaissance, supply delivery, and precision engagement, capable of hitting targets up to 100 meters away. Months later, separate footage surfaced, showing the same robots used in a staged amphibious assault, the first wave hitting the beach instead of soldiers. What one Chinese military broadcast called the most dangerous 200 meters a soldier could ever cross is now, according to that same broadcast, handled entirely by a machine. These four-legged units were first shown publicly at a defense expo back in 2024, but 2025 marked the moment they stopped being a trade show curiosity and started appearing in actual combat rehearsals. Underwater, the reveals were just as unsettling. The AJX-002, an extra-large uncrewed underwater vehicle roughly 60 feet long, torpedo-shaped, built with pump jet propulsion for long-duration, stealthy patrols far from any support ship. Beside it sat the HSU-100, a smaller companion drone from the same family, apparently designed for a related but distinct mission set. Analysts believe China now operates the largest fleet of these extra-large underwater drones anywhere in the world, with at least 5 separate designs already confirmed to exist. Unlike a traditional submarine, none of these need a crew compartment, life support, or a way home for the humans aboard, which means they can be built cheaper, sent further, and risked in places no Navy would ever send a manned vessel. In the air, one design stood apart from everything else on display that day: a large, tailless, low-observable, uncrewed aircraft roughly the size of a J-10 fighter jet. China never gave it an official public name. Open-source analysts started calling it the Unmanned Air Superiority Fighter, and the shape alone suggested something built to actually contest control of the sky, not simply to scout it from a distance. Whether it can already fly, or was simply a highly convincing full-scale mock-up rolled out for the cameras, remains genuinely unclear, and Chinese officials have offered nothing to settle the question either way. Few people remember this, but the most operationally significant unmanned reveal of the entire period arrived 2 months after the parade, not during it. In November 2025, the People's Liberation Army Air Force released a short anniversary film called Far-Reaching Dreams, marking its 76th year of existence. Buried inside it was the first ever footage of the GJ-11, a stealthy flying wing combat drone sometimes called Dark Dragon, flying in coordinated formation with a manned J-20 fighter and a J-16D electronic warfare jet. It was proof of concept for what Western analysts call manned-unmanned teaming: 3 very different aircraft, 1 shared mission, and no separate human pilot flying that drone by remote control from the ground. Chapter 5: Wings over Beijing. The fighter formations that flew over the parade told their own story. one of an Air Force diversifying faster than almost anyone outside China had expected. Leading that formation was a baseline J-20 stealth fighter, but powered for the first time publicly by China's own indigenous WS-10C engine, no longer dependent on imported Russian power plants for its most advanced aircraft. It was seen refueling mid-flight from the YY-20, a brand-new tanker aircraft expected to significantly extend the J-20's already considerable operational range. By the time of the parade, reports suggested China had already fielded roughly 300 J-20 airframes across more than a dozen frontline brigades, a production rate that has quietly outpaced most Western estimates from just a few years earlier. Right behind it flew the J-20S, the only twin-seat stealth fighter currently in operational service anywhere in the world. First unveiled back in October 2021, its existence was only officially confirmed in July 2025, just weeks before the parade finally gave it a proper public debut. That second seat isn't there for a trainee pilot. It likely belongs to a dedicated systems operator, quite possibly managing electronic warfare or coordinating drone wingmen in real time from inside the cockpit, freeing the pilot in the front seat to focus entirely on flying and fighting the aircraft itself. At sea, the carrier program got its own moment in the formation. The J-15T, a catapult-capable version of China's carrier fighter, armed with the PL-17, a long-range air-to-air missile reportedly capable of engaging targets 400 kilometers away, flew alongside the KJ-600, China's first fixed-wing carrier-based early warning aircraft, and by far the most advanced airborne radar platform the country has ever put on a flight deck. Nobody expected this pairing so soon. A dedicated carrier-based early warning plane is the kind of capability navies typically spend decades developing, and China had gone from rumor to public flight formation in a fraction of that time. And rounding out the jet formations that day, the J-16D electronic warfare aircraft and the J-35A, China's newer, lighter stealth fighter, both flying beside the GJ-11 drone in a pairing that, as mentioned earlier, would only be officially shown working together on camera 2 months later. 5 distinct, stealth-capable fighter designs now sit simultaneously in Chinese service, a level of variety no other air force in the world currently matches. Most nations are still trying to field one credible stealth fighter. China was flying 5 different versions over the same parade route in a single afternoon. Chapter 6. Beyond the Sky and Under the Sea. 2 final reveals didn't fit neatly into any of the categories above, because they weren't really about fighting other militaries in the traditional sense. They were about controlling entirely new domains altogether. The HQ-29 had already been quietly spotted on a transporter erector launcher back in June 2025, months before anyone outside a small circle of analysts knew what it actually was. When it finally rolled through the parade that September, Chinese officials confirmed it as an anti-ballistic missile and anti-satellite system in one, evolved from the earlier HQ-19, capable of intercepting targets anywhere from 100 to 2,000 kilometers in altitude. That performance range roughly matches the American SM-3 Block IIA interceptor, placing China in a very small club of nations that can now credibly threaten satellites sitting in low Earth orbit. It is worth remembering that the same parade that revealed the HQ-29 also revealed the microwave weapons discussed earlier, 2 completely different technologies converging on the exact same target, the satellites overhead that modern militaries now depend on for everything from navigation to communications. This one was different though, because it wasn't announced with any fanfare at all. In early 2026, satellite imagery quietly picked up something new taking shape at the Bohai shipyard, China's first Type 095 class nuclear-powered attack submarine. What made it remarkable wasn't just the new class itself, but the whole design, a smooth, futuristic, sailless shape with no traditional conning tower breaking its silhouette. That kind of design typically means one thing: A hull optimized purely for underwater speed and quiet, at the cost of all the visual clutter every previous generation of submarine carried on top. Nuclear-powered attack submarines remain one of the very last areas where the United States still holds a clear technical edge over China. The Type 095 is the clearest signal yet that Beijing intends to close that gap too, quietly, from a shipyard most people outside naval intelligence circles had never even heard of, using a design nobody had confirmed until the exact moment satellite cameras finally caught it sitting in the water. By most outside estimates, China's nuclear-powered submarine fleet had already grown larger than Russia's by 2025, and its shipyards were producing new hulls at a pace American yards simply could not match. 41 systems, one single year, and that is very likely not the end of the list, only the part of it that made it into public view.